All right, now we're going to take a look at Paradise City. The intro for this song has a clean guitar sound, and we're going to start off with 3 chords that maybe you already know, but we're going to play them a little differently. We're going to play a G chord like this. I'm going to finger it with fingers 3, 2, and have my 4th finger up here on the high E string. So I have my 3rd finger, 3rd fret of the low E, 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the A. I have the D, G, and the B open, and then I'm going to play on the 3rd fret of the high E with my 4th finger. Then we're going to play a C chord, but with this C chord, I'm going to keep my 4th finger on that G note, which is on the 3rd fret of the high E string. And the 3rd chord we're going to need to know for this intro is called an F add 9. So what I do is I just take my 3rd finger and my 2nd finger over one string. So now I'm on the 3rd fret of the D, 2nd fret of the G, 1st fret of the B, and then I keep my 4th finger on that G note, 3rd fret of the high E string. And that chord is called F add 9. So we have G, C, and F add 9. Okay, so we're going to start off with some picking with the G chord. What we're going to do is we're going to strum the chord, and then we're going to back pick from the highest string, the E string, the B string, and the G string. We're going to back pick that 3 times. So we hit the chord, and then here's the picking pattern. After we backpick 3 times, we're then going to play the note B, the open B string. So it sounds like this. Okay, now we're going to go to the C chord, but on our way to the C chord, we're going to play the D and the G string open, and then hammer on to the 2nd fret of the D string. And then we're going to grab the C note, so our fingers are now going to form the rest of that shape for the C chord. The C note is on the 3rd fret of the A string. So we play the D and the G open, hammer on with our middle finger, and then grab that note C with the 3rd finger. Then we're going to play the note E, which is on the 2nd fret of the D string, and then we're going to do the same back picking 3 times on the top 3 strings, ending up with the final hit for this measure on the B string. So that will be on the 1st fret of the B string. Okay, so for the C chord, we've done this. So here's what we've done so far. Okay, now we're going to go to the F add 9 chord. We're going to play an idea very similar to what we did for the C chord, but now I'm going to hammer on from the open D and the G to the 3rd fret of the D and the 2nd fret of the G. So it's going to sound like this. Then I'm going to play the B string and back pick the top 3 strings. And now I'm going to go back to the B string. So the measure with the F add 9 sounds like this so far. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the C chord with the hammer on, and I'm going to end the measure like this. So what I did was I back picked from the top 3 strings here, and lift off with your 1st finger now, so we're going to play the open B string. And this gets us into the final measure, which will be played from a G chord. Okay, so the final measure now sounds like this. Okay, so what I'm doing here is from the G chord, I'm strumming the chord once, back picking the top 3 strings, then I back pick the top 2, then I have almost a little country riff. So I hammer on from the open G string to the 2nd fret of the G, play the open B, then I play the G to the B open. Now I'm going to hammer on from the 2nd fret of the D, I'm going to hammer on to the 2nd fret of the D string. So open D to the 2nd fret of the D. open G. Here's what we've done so far. And we're going to end this measure with an open D string. And that's the 4 measures for the intro. So let's put them all together. Okay, so when you're going through this, keep in mind there's more than one guitar on the recording. So what we're trying to do here is play both guitar parts. As long as you're playing these chords and keeping good time, you can pretty much play any notes, any picking pattern within those chords. So if you want to get in there and play exactly what's on the record, that's great. Otherwise, feel free to improvise around those chord shapes, but just make sure you keep good time and you'll be all right. So that's the intro. All right, so coming out of this clean intro, the first time we hear the electric guitars with some power chords, we're basically outlining what we did during the intro. We're going to start off with a G power chord. And I'm playing this chord, playing the root note G, 3rd fret of the low E string with my middle finger. My middle finger also mutes the A string, so I don't hear the A string, even though I strum over it. Okay, then I have the D and the G open, and then I have the 3rd fret of the B and the E. Now we're going to go to a C power chord, so I'm going to play on the 3rd fret of the A along with the 5th fret of the D and G. And as I go from chord to chord, there's going to be a little scratch in between. So I'm going to play the G chord. And to get to the C, I'm going to mute the strings. I just place my left hand across the string so I don't hear a chord and just do this. Just helps add to the feel of the song. So on the way to the C, we're going to have this little scratch. And we're going to do that as well when we go to the 3rd chord, which is F. So for the F, I'm just going to play an F power chord. 1st fret of the low E string, 3rd fret A, 3rd fret of the D. Then we're back to C, back to G. Okay, so if I put that together, here's what it sounds like. And now we're into the first solo. So let me play through the solo and then we'll break it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so here's what's happening. We're playing mostly in this G major position between the 12th and the 15th fret. I'm going to start off on the 12th fret of the D string, hammer on to the 14th fret of the D string, then play on the 12th fret of the G 2 times. Okay, so I'm thinking G here. So here's the root note G on the 12th fret of the G string. Okay, we come back down now, 14 to 12 on the D. Now with the 4th finger, we reach up to the 15th fret, which is also the note D on the B string. And we're going to play this phrase. Okay, so what I'm doing here is playing on that 15th fret of the B string. With my 3rd finger, I'm then going to grab the 14th fret on the G, bend up a full step, bend it again, and then come back down. Go to the 12th fret of the G, back down to the 14th fret of the D. Okay, so here's what we've done so far. And we do that phrase 2 times. So if I play that phrase twice, here's what we've done. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the next idea, we're going to bend from the 13th fret, which is the note C on the B string, up a full step. Now, because I'm in this position, I'm going to use my middle finger to bend. So I'm bending up a full step from the 13th fret of the B string, come back down, then I'm going to go to the 14th fret of the G, bend up a full step and back down, back to the 12th fret of the G, 14 on the D string. So we've done this so far. Now we're going to hold the bend on the 14th fret of the G string. All right, so that's the second phrase of the solo. So we play the first idea 2 times, and then we play this new idea. So if I put that together, here's what we've done. Okay, so far so good. Now we go back to the first phrase, which is played twice, this little bit. And now we're going to have a different ending. It's going to be similar to something we've already done, but it sounds like this. So we bend on the 13th fret of the B string up a full step using the middle finger here. Now we're going to grab the 15th fret of the high E with the 4th finger. Now hit the B and come back down. And now we're going to go back to the B string. We're going to stay on the B string, play the 12th fret, and we're going to do a vibrato where we bend up a half step and back down. And I think that's played 5 times, that little vibrato there. Okay, so here's the whole first solo. There it is. All right, so far we've played the clean intro, we've played the distorted intro with the chords, and we've learned the first solo. So now we're going to get into the pre-verse riff. So this is where the band really starts grooving hard. The verse hasn't started yet, the vocals have not come in, and this is going to be a little bit different than what happens when the vocals come in, so that's why we should take a look at this. So I'll play through the first guitar part of the pre-verse riff, and then we'll break it down. Sounds like this. And that's it. So here's what's happening. The main key center is G now. We're going to start off on the G note, 3rd fret of the low E string. Most of this work is going to be done now on the low E string. We're going to play 3, and then a little chromatic run, 1, 2, back to 3 on the same low E string. Do that again. Then we have 1, 3, 1. And then we go back to 3, and then we're going to go up to the 1st fret of the A string. So here's what we've done so far. Okay, one more time. Okay, and then we do the same thing again, but we're going to have a slightly different ending. We're going to play the 3rd fret of the A string to the 1st fret of the A string for the ending of this second phrase. Sounds like this. So if I put those 2 phrases together, here's what we've done. Okay, next phrase is the same as the first. Okay, the fourth phrase is going to be slightly different. It sounds like this. So we're going to start off the same as we've always started off. We're going to play the third fret of the low E, chromatic 1, 2, 3. So far we've done this. Now we're going to play the open A string and move up chromatically on the A string. Chromatic means one note after the next, okay? So right on up. From the open A, first fret, second fret, third fret of the A. When we get to the third fret of the A, we're going to bend up, come back down to the third fret of the A, and then go back to the first fret of the A. Okay, so that final phrase, one more time, sounds like this. Okay, so let's go back and put all of that together. Okay, so that's what one guitar is doing, and as in many of Guns N' Roses' songs, there are two guitar players in the band, so there are two separate guitar parts. So the second guitar sounds like this. I'll play through it and then we'll break it down. Okay, so what's happening here is we're playing, it's a little more chordal, a little chunkier. So we're starting off with the 5th fret of the A and the D. Now I'm going to play single notes on 3 and 4 on the A. Then back to the double stops. That's when I play 2 notes at once. I call that a double stop. On the 5th fret of the A and the D. So here's what we've done so far. Okay, and then we do that again. Keep the double stops back to the 3rd fret, to the 5th fret, to the 3rd fret, back to the 5th. Now we're going to go up to the D and the G on the 3rd fret. Okay, so here's what we've done so far. Okay, and then we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to have a slightly different ending, just like we learned in the first guitar part. Now we're going to end by playing the double stops on the 5th fret of the D and G, back to the double stops on the 3rd fret of the D and G. Okay, so the second phrase sounds like this. So here's what we've done so far. Okay, the next phrase is the same as the first. And the final phrase sounds like this. So we start off with the double stops, 5th fret, A and D, 3, 4, the little chromatic run on the A, back to the double stops on the A and the D string. So we've done this so far. Then we do that again, chromatic run. Now we're going to go back to double stops on the 3rd fret of the A and D, double stops on the 5th fret of the D and G, and the double stops on the 3rd fret of the D and G. Okay, so that final phrase was this. All right, so here's the entire part for the second guitar. Okay, when the vocals start, this is going to be the verse, the riffs are very similar. The main guitar sounds like this. Okay, so that's very similar to what we learned for the pre-verse riff. We start off with that chromatic passage starting from the 3rd fret of the E string. We're still grooving in G. In the intro here, we went up just to the 1st fret, the B flat note of the A string. Now we're going to play the top part of a B flat power chord. So we're going to play on the 3rd fret of the D and G. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. The rhythm, the notes are the same. Okay, that's the only difference. So you pretty much know this part. The next phrase number 2 for this guitar sounds like this. In the pre-verse, we learned this. Now we're just going to play chords. So we play on the 5th fret of the D and the G, back to the 3rd fret of the D and the G. Okay, so the second phrase sounds like this. The 3rd phrase is the same as the first. So here's what we've done so far. And the final phrase is a little bit different, follows the vocals, sounds like this. So what we do is we start off on the 3rd fret of the E string, little chromatic run, 1, 2, 3. Now we play chords, B flat power chord to C power chord. And we're going to end with this phrase. So this is on the A string, 3rd fret, bend up a half step and come back down. Then 1, 3, 1. Now to the E string, 1 to 3. And the most important part of all, slide down. Okay, you can start that slide anywhere, but I do it on the low E string. Gives it the emotion. Okay, so that's guitar number 1 for the verse. The second guitar is a lot funkier, and it's not an exact pattern. I think the idea is we're just trying to emphasize what the guitar part is doing that we just learned, and to not get in the way of the vocals, but just to add something. It's a single note riff. It sounds something like this. Okay, so what's happening here is we're playing a little funky thing on the note G, 5th fret of the D string. And then we're going to play B flat, which is on the 3rd fret of the G. And then we go back to that G, single notes. And then 5 to 3 on the G. Okay, so just like we learned in the pre-verse and in the verse, the first time we go up to the note B flat, and the second time we play C to B flat. Next phrase, same as the first. And the 4th phrase sounds like this. So what I'm doing is playing 5, 3, 5 on the D. 3 to 5 on the G. Then we bend up. So we do that bend twice. Okay, and now we're going to do something that's a little interesting. We're going to bend up a half step on the G. And then we're going to catch, we're going to bend up a half step on the 5th fret of the G. And then we're going to catch the B string on the 5th fret. So those two notes clash a little bit, but it's kind of cool. Learn to love it. Now we take the G string further up, so it's going to be a full step, and then we come back down. 3rd fret of the G, 2 times on the 5th fret of the D. And then, of course, the slide. Okay, so those funky little chucks I'm doing on the 5th fret of the D string. They're a little bit different every time, so just as long as you're kind of in the groove and you're not getting in the way of the vocals or getting in the way of the other guitar, which I would consider to be the main guitar, as long as you're just kind of in the groove, you can get away with pretty much anything. Okay, so here's the second guitar part for the verse. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you put those two guitar parts together and you've got the verse. Okay, so we just got through the verse. Now let's take a look at the chorus. The chorus is something we've already played before in the intro, before that first intro solo came in. So, I think you're already going to know this, but let's review what's happening during the chorus. We're going to start off with a G power chord to a C power chord, and then we're going to play F to C, back to G. So here's the whole chorus. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's the chorus part, something you already have played before, nothing new there. It's a nice contrast to all the busy stuff we were learning during the verse. We can finally take it a little easier during the chorus. Okay, now that we've gone over all these parts, the good news is these parts repeat quite a few times. So if we do a little summary of what we've learned, we've taken it from the clean intro, then we had the distorted power chords, which are like the chorus, then we've gone into the first small solo, intro solo you could say. Coming out of that intro solo, we went into the pre-verse riff, then into the verse riff. Out of that, we're going to go back into the pre-verse riff, verse riff, finally into the chorus. Repeat the pre-verse, then we have half of a verse, then we're into the next chorus. Okay? But we know all of those parts already, so there's nothing new to learn there. And finally, we're going to be up into the main solo of the song. So let's take a look at the main solo. We'll break it down into small pieces, okay? So I'll play the first little small piece and then we'll break it down. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let's take a look at what was going on there. During this solo, there's an octave divider on the guitar, so we're going to play this without the octave divider, but if you happen to have one at home, you might want to step on it for this part. We go to G, so we're going to do a lot of stuff from the G. It's bluesy, mostly minor pentatonic, but we mix it up a little bit. Starting with the 3rd fret of the D string, we're going to bend that up slowly, and then grab the 5th fret of the D string. Okay, so there's the first little bit. Okay, more pentatonic. 3G, 5, 3D, 5A. So we have. Next phrase. That's bending up on the 5th fret of the G string, up a whole step. Back to 3 on the G. Down to 5 on the D. Now we're going to go back to 5 on the G, bend up a full step, down to 3 on the G, bend up 5 on the G again. Now we're going to play 3 to 6 on the B, and then we're going to slide into 6 on the B. Now with the 4th finger, we can grab 6 on the high E, jump back to the G string on the 5th fret with a reverse bend. Now we're going to play 3 to 6 on the G, jump up, we're going to play 3 to 4 on the G, jump up to 3 on the high E, and slide up into 8 on the B string, which is the root note G. Okay, it's a lot to take in. Let me play it slowly from the beginning. Okay, now the song modulates up a full step into A. So you can think A blues, A minor pentatonic now. And the next phrase in A sounds like this. Okay, so what we're doing is starting off on the 8th fret of the B string, bend up, grab 5 to 8 on the high E, reverse bend on the B string 8th fret, so I bend up and then strike the note, come down and then grab 5th fret of the B. And then you can go back to the 8th fret of the B, so that whole phrase sounds like this. Next phrase sounds like this. So we're bending up on the 7th fret of the G, full step, 5 to 8 on the B, reverse bend on the 7th fret of the G, come down, and then go to the 5th fret on the G, finally landing on the root note A, 7th fret of the D string. Okay, now we're going to have a little run down the A blues scale. Sounds like this. Okay, so what that is, just playing 7-5 on the D string, 7-6-5 on the A, back to 3 on the A. When we get to the 5 on the A, now we're going to bend up a half step and back down, going back to 3 on the A, landing on 5E. All right, let's go back to the beginning and put all of this together, okay, so it makes sense in context. 1, 2, 3, Okay, the next part of the solo, we're going to go back down the G, and the phrase sounds like this. And what I'm doing here is starting off with double stops on the 5th fret of the G and the B. Give it a slight push. Now I'm going to back pick on the top 3 strings on the 3rd fret. And that's going to be the main phrase, the double stop bend and the back picking here. Okay, so I go back and forth between those until I play the 5th fret of the G and the B, that double stop, on the 4th time, then I'm going to go to the next idea. So, starts off here. Okay, so that was the 4th time I got back to these double stops. Now we're going to be into the next section of the song, which sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, and... Okay, so it's the same idea over and over again. We're just outlining some chords starting with a D chord. So if you can imagine a D bar chord here starting at the 10th fret, which would make it D, we're outlining a lot of the notes from this chord shape. Starting on the G string, 10 to 11, skip over to the high E string on the 10th fret, come back 12 G, 10 to 11 on the G, and then back to the 10 on the high E. So that's 7 notes altogether. All right, so that outlines D. So we do those 7 notes 2 times for each of these chords. So we do it from D, and then we move it down a full step, do the exact same thing. Okay, so it's 2 times from the D, 2 times for the C, and I go back and forth. D, C, D, C, D, C, D, and C. All right? So after outlining the D to the C 4 times, on the 4th time we're going to go down to B flat. So the only time it's going to be a little bit different is on the 4th phrase, and the 4th phrase sounds like this, from the D. So I played on the D as I normally would. I move down to C and just play that 1 time. And now I move down another whole step to B flat. This is the first time we get to B flat, and it sounds like this. So what I'm doing here is playing on the 6th fret of the G, 7th fret of the G, and then I'm going to play double stops on the top 2 strings on the 6th fret. So here's the final phrase. Okay, and there's the whole solo. Should we go try to put the whole thing together now? What do you say? You ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Cool. There's the solo. Okay, so we've talked about the verse. In the 4th verse, the final verse of the song, there is a guitar harmony that I thought is pretty cool and we should take a look at. I'll play through it and then we'll break it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is a major third above where the main riff of the verse is being played. The main riff for the verse starts on G. So we're going to start this on B, but up on the 4th fret of the G string. Okay? So it's going to be a very similar pattern, but we're going to start up on B. It's harmonized a major third above where the main guitar is. So we're going to start off on the 4th fret of the G, then play 2, 3, 4. Do that again. And then play 2, 4, 2, 4, up to 3 on the B string. So far we've done this. Okay, repeat that phrase. But now we're going to play on the 5th fret of the B back to the 3rd fret of the B. Okay, so if I put all of that together, here's what we've done. Repeat the first phrase again. And the next phrase sounds like this. So what I'm doing here is starting on the 4th fret of the G, 2, 3, 4, back to 2. Now I'm going to play quarter notes, 1 beat per note. On the 2nd fret of the D string, that note is E. 5th fret of the D string. 5th fret G. 5th fret on the B string. And the final phrase sounds like this. So So on the 5th fret of the B, we're going to bend up a full step and back down. 3rd fret on the B, 5-3. Now down to the G string, we're going to play 3 to 4. And of course, okay, so here's what we've done for the entire verse harmony. 1, 2, 3. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the outro section. This is where we have the big drum fills, and then it's going to be a double time craziness thing happening. So, sounds like this. I'll play it and then we'll break it down. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Cool. Okay, so what's happening here? We're starting off on the note G. We're kind of outlining what the chorus is doing. We're outlining the chords G, playing this fast single note riff, C, another riff, F, C, and G. So keep that in mind as we're learning these single note riffs. We're just outlining those chords that are happening during the chorus, but we're doing it double time. So, starting off on the 5th fret of the D string, that note is G. We're going to play it 5th fret, and then, once again, this chromatic idea. Now we're going to go back to the 3rd fret, 4th, back to the 5th on the D string. Chromatic again. And then 3, 5, 3, 5. Up to 3 on the G. Okay, and that outlines the G shape. Now we're going to go to C, so I'm going to start on the 5th fret of the G string now. So I'm going to play 5th fret of the G, chromatic 3, 4, 5, chromatic again, then 5, 3, 5, 3. Now I'm going to do a little, kind of just slide up off of the 5th fret of the G string. Gives it a little flavor. Back to the 3rd fret of the G. So that whole riff together sounds like this. And if I go back with the first riff, okay, now we're going to F, and we're going to play this. This is going to be 3rd fret of the D string, then chromatic, 1, 2, 3 on the D. Now that F is only half a measure, remember. So after this, we're going to play the open D to get us in position to play on the 3rd fret of the D. And now we're going to play 5th fret of the G. And the next phrase on the G string sounds like this, which is just chromatic up, 3, 4, 5 on the G, back to the 3rd, give it a little bend, and then 5, 3, 5 on the D string. Okay, so from the F. And finally, we're going to end with this phrase. Okay, pentatonic riff. 3rd fret G, 5th fret D, 5 to 3 on the G, 5 to 3 on the D, 5 on the D, finally ending 3G, 5D. All right, so let's go back and put all of this together again. Okay, so that's how the outro starts, but it goes on for a long time, and they're playing double time, they're playing fast, they're going crazy, just kind of having fun. So the idea is you're outlining the chords from the chorus. So you can just play those chords, the G, C, F, C, G. So sometimes the guitar is just playing those chords, sometimes it's single note riffs. You can also play this riff that I just taught you, this one, down an octave, and that sounds pretty cool. So instead of starting on G on the 5th fret of the D string, we start on the 3rd fret of the low E. But it's the exact same notes. Okay, a little homework for you. All right, so if you're familiar with this song, Paradise City, you probably noticed that at the end, Slash is going crazy. There's just a million notes all over the place. So rather than do every single note, do the section note for note, there's a section on this DVD which goes through the scales that you can use so you can create your own great solos there and have fun improvising at the end. So some of those scales that he's using are G major pentatonic, G minor pentatonic, and something known as the Mixolydian scale. So there's a section on this DVD where you can go find those scales. So have fun with it.